It was close to midnight, and the stretch of highway I was driving down had always been quiet at that hour. I'd made the trip a dozen times before, from my late shift at the hospital back to my small apartment on the edge of town. Usually, I liked the silence. There was something calming about being alone on an empty road, the hum of the tires against asphalt, the faint static of the radio, and the glow of the dashboard lights. But that night, the air was heavy. The fog had rolled in thick and low, swallowing the trees and road signs until they were just vague shapes in the dark. My headlights didn't do much except illuminate swirling, shifting gray. About 10 miles from home, I saw the first figure. At first, I thought it was a mailbox, just a tall, thin silhouette off to the side of the road. But as my car drew closer, it shifted. A man stepped forward, into the edge of the beam, his features blurry behind the haze. He was wearing a dark coat that looked soaked, hanging heavy against his frame. He didn't raise his hand for a ride. He didn't even seem to notice me. He just stood there, staring at the empty space ahead of him. I slowed slightly, more out of instinct than anything else. Something about the way he was standing bothered me. Completely still, head slightly tilted, like he was listening for something I couldn't hear. When I passed, I caught his face for just a second. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes, they weren't focused on me or the road. They were fixed somewhere far beyond. I didn't stop. A few minutes later, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The fog made everything seem closer than it was, but I swear I could still make out that same dark figure in the distance, standing exactly where I'd seen him. I tried to shake it off. People walked along rural roads sometimes. Maybe he was headed toward the nearest town. Except another 5 miles down, I saw him again. Same coat, same stance, same tilt of the head. My stomach dropped. This wasn't possible. There were no side roads in that stretch. No way he could have gotten ahead of me unless he had been running, and even then, he would have had to move impossibly fast. I pressed harder on the gas, my heart thudding in my chest. A mile later, I saw movement in the fog ahead. This time, the man stepped directly into the road. I slammed the brakes, my tires squealing against the damp pavement. The figure didn't flinch. He just stood in my lane, staring straight into my headlights. For a moment, I considered honking, but my hand froze on the wheel. There was something unnatural in the way he held himself, his shoulders rigid, his chin slightly too high, as if he was smelling the air rather than looking at me. Then, without warning, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was wide, wrong, showing too many teeth. Before I could react, the fog thickened, swallowing him completely. 1 second he was there, the next, nothing, just empty road. I didn't wait. I floored it, my hands gripping the wheel so tight they hurt. I didn't see him again that night, but for weeks afterward, I avoided that route entirely. It's been years now, and I've never found out who or what I saw. But every time I drive in heavy fog, I can't help scanning the roadside, half expecting to see him standing there, waiting. The interstate was nearly empty that night, which was exactly how I liked it. I had a 3-hour drive ahead of me, heading home after visiting my parents for the weekend. The sky was clear, the moon was bright, and the stretch of road ahead was so straight it felt like I could see all the way into tomorrow. I set the cruise control, turned the radio low, and settled in. It was about 20 minutes later when I noticed the headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, it didn't seem strange cars passed now and then, even on the quieter stretches. But something about these lights caught my attention. They stayed the same distance behind me, Not gaining, not falling back, just there. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe they were just going the same speed. But after another 10 minutes, they were still there. I switched lanes casually, watching to see what they would do. They switched lanes too. I felt a twinge of unease, but brushed it off. Coincidences happened. Maybe they had the same exit coming up. Except I didn't take an exit, and neither did they. I sped up a little. The headlights sped up too. That was when the unease turned into something heavier. I decided to test it. I slowed down. The lights behind me slowed down too, matching me perfectly. Whoever it was, they were doing it on purpose. I thought about pulling into a rest stop, but the idea of giving them a chance to stop behind me made my skin crawl. So I kept driving, eyes darting from the road ahead to the glowing white orbs in my mirror. After almost 40 minutes of this strange shadowing, I took a random exit onto a small, 2-lane road. The turn was sudden enough that anyone not paying close attention might have missed it. But they didn't. The headlights followed me. That was it. I wasn't imagining things anymore. The road I'd chosen wound through a heavily wooded area. No streetlights, no houses in sight. I pressed the accelerator, weaving through the curves. The lights stayed behind me, unwavering. Then something strange happened. They suddenly vanished. 1 second, they were glaring into my rearview mirror. The next, total darkness behind me. I slowed, scanning the shadows for any sign of them, but the road was empty. Relief started to creep in. Maybe they'd turned off somewhere. Maybe it was finally over. That's when I saw the shape. Not a car, a figure, standing on the side of the road, just at the edge of my headlight's reach. I didn't get a good look at them, but I could tell they were tall, very tall. And they weren't standing like a hitchhiker. They were turned toward the road, their head tilted in my direction, unmoving. A flash of fear jolted through me. I pressed the gas, speeding past without looking directly at them. But as I passed, I caught a glimpse of something in my peripheral vision. It was the reflection of 2 bright white circles, just like headlights, staring straight at me from where the person's eyes should have been. When I reached the next highway entrance, I merged on without slowing down once. I never saw the headlights again that night. But every time I think about it, I can't shake the feeling that they weren't headlights at all. They were eyes, and whoever or whatever was following me was never in a car to begin with. It was close to midnight when I realized I was running low on gas. I was on Route 19, a narrow stretch of road that cut through miles of farmland and dense woods, the kind of place where you could drive for half an hour without seeing another car. My fuel light had been on for a while, and I was starting to get nervous when I spotted the faint glow of neon in the distance. A gas station. It was an old one, the kind with a single pump island, a flickering OPEN sign, and a faded awning that looked like it hadn't been replaced in decades. The parking lot was empty. No other cars, no attendants outside. I pulled up to the pump and got out, the cold air biting my skin. Everything was so still. The only sound was the low hum of the sign's transformer and the faint squeak of the pump handle when I picked it up. As I filled my tank, I glanced toward the small convenience store attached to the station. The inside lights were on, but the glass door was so dusty I could barely see through it. I thought I saw movement inside, but when I squinted, it was empty. That's when I heard the bell, the old-fashioned kind, a soft ding like the one that rings when someone enters a shop. Except I was still outside. No one had opened the door. I froze, my hand gripping the pump handle. Another ding, this time louder. I told myself it must be faulty wiring, but a sudden, low tapping sound came from the glass door. I turned my head just in time to see the faint outline of a hand slide down the inside of the glass, leaving behind a streak. I stepped back. My tank was almost full, but I didn't care. I yanked the nozzle out, shoved it back into the pump, and reached for my keys. That's when the lights inside the store went out, pitch black. I heard slow footsteps, not from inside anymore. They were outside, on the concrete, and they were coming from the side of the building, toward me. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and started the engine. My headlights lit up the pump in front of me, but the rest of the lot stayed swallowed in darkness. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd imagined it. Then something stepped into the edge of my headlights. It was a man, or at least it looked like a man. His clothes were torn, his skin pale to the point of gray, and his eyes caught the light in a way that made them seem almost metallic. He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was wide, too wide. And then, in one slow motion, he crouched like an animal and crawled out of the beam of my headlights, disappearing into the dark. That was enough for me. I slammed my foot on the gas and didn't stop until I was 20 miles down the road. When I finally glanced in my rearview mirror, the gas station was nothing but a faint glow in the distance. Except there were two pinpoints of light behind me, just above the road, keeping pace with my car for several miles before vanishing completely. I never drove down Route 19 again, and every time I pass a lonely, flickering gas station at night, I can't help but wonder if it's waiting for me to stop.